Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're calling this program, Who is My Neighbor? And I think we all understand that that's a question that grows out of our faith traditions, right? Because we are supposed to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. I'm George Mason. I'm the president of Faith Commons. My partner, Rabbi Nancy Caston, is here, our chief relationship officer, and this is a program that we put together with Royal Lane Baptist Church. And Mara Richards-Bim, who used to work with us at Faith Commons and is now the Justice and Advocacy Fellow for their staff and this congregation. And so we obviously continue to work closely together. One of our key priorities in Faith Commons, and certainly at Royal Lane in their work right now, is something that preoccupies many of us, and that is the terrible situation with our migrant neighbors and what's happening in our communities and in our nation in that respect. Some of you have been involved with us on Monday mornings at the clergy-led prayer vigils that we've been having at the ICE headquarters on Sundays. If you have not, if you would be interested in that, please ask us about it afterward. It's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every Monday morning, and we will tell you where to go and what to do in that respect. Others of you have been involved through St. Thomas, the Apostle Episcopal Church, in their excellent work that they have been doing also in this regard. Some of you are court observers. You'll be hearing more about all these different ways that we've been going about trying to address this, educate the community through podcasts like the Good God podcast that you can find online. And tonight is about storytelling. Sometimes these matters get very abstract and mechanical. Questions and debates online about what is the law and what is the right responsibility of people and how should we be addressing this. But this is at the base a very human matter, and we think that people of faith should be calling on everyone to address it first at that level, a matter of human dignity which precedes the question of what should our laws be in this regard. And always this is the transcendent question that religion should be posing to our public policy matters. So tonight we're going to hear stories. We're going to have our guests introduce themselves, and Mara will be moderating. I want to make it clear to you that Jim is over here with a video going, but he will be only focusing on them. So if you are all concerned about your presence for whatever reason, rest assured that your face will not be in this. And so continue to pray for all of us in our efforts, meager as they may be. We have the sense that at this moment, being present faithfully as best we can in various venues and trying to stand alongside and accompany people through this difficult time is an important role for us all to play. And so thank you again for being here. And with that, I'm going to give it to Mara.
Awesome. Thank you, George. So on behalf of Royal Lane Baptist Church, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, George and Nancy, for helping to put this together. And thank you to each of the panelists. So I'm Mara Richards-Bim. As George said, I am the sort of inaugural fellow here in what is a new program called the Prophetic Leadership Program. I have a 2-year fellowship. I'm the Justice and Advocacy Fellow. And if you're doing nothing next Saturday, I'm also getting ordained next week. So come on back here at 3 o'clock. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to ask, we'll just start by just introducing yourself, just a short, and then we'll get into stories. So do you want to go first?
Good afternoon, almost evening. My name is Sandra Esteravelos Ortega. I am originally from Michoacán, Mexico, and I'm a community organizer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend Isabel Marquez. I am an associate pastor at Oakland United Methodist Church, and I am also from Mexico, practically from the border, Nuevo Laredo, Mexico.
Hi all, my name is Eric Cedillo. I'm an attorney and wear hats on a few different things. I'm currently the president of the Mexican-American Bar Association here locally. I am the national legal advisor to LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, and probably most proudly, I am the founder of March to the Polls here in Dallas.
Great. So we're talking about stories, and this is a very, what is happening right now is a very personal story. Would you be willing to share kind of what brings you to this work? And if it's okay, we'll start with you, Sandra.
So when I was graduating from high school, I was trying to figure out if attaining a higher degree was an opportunity for me. And so right around that time, I found out that there was a group of folks called the Dreamers that were organizing in the state of Texas to continue to have in-state tuition and to, at a national scale, that they were trying to pass the DREAM Act. And so as I graduated from college, that was one of the first things that I was looking for. I was looking for a home to learn a little bit more about that, and lo and behold, I met the North Texas Dream Team, and there's where I began my training as a community organizer. My first action was actually traveling to Austin and doing work against SB4. We did a serenata to the governor to about 3 a.m. One of my best friends actually le cantó Rata de Dos Patas. And then from there, the next morning we woke up and I walked into the Capitol Hill and I looked up, and for the first time I saw, my people out in the, taking up space and being unapologetically and chanting "Sin papeles, sin miedo," undocumented, unafraid. And for me, that was such a profound moment, because I saw my people not only taking up space and being unapologetic who they are, but taking action. And for me, that was such a powerful thing, because for the first time I saw myself being able to come out the shadows, myself being able to be an agent to my own destiny, right? And so for me, that was a pivotal moment. From there, I came back to Dallas. I organized with local folks, and then from there I went to DC, organized on a national scale, did some civil disobedience, and got arrested, came back, and continued to do the work, and this is where we are today.
Okay. We're partners. I can't wait to be. Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. You see, in my country, around this time, 5, 6 p.m., there is a lot of people, the ladies, they get out of their houses and they get their chairs, rocking chairs, and they get their cafecito, coffee with bread, and then they sit down comfortable and they start the chisme. So we're not in a chisme time, which is gossiping, but we're in a learning time. So all that to say that I'm gonna, I took notes in my phone. Why? Because I love to talk a lot. So you don't want me to be here all day, but I can tell you that I start my story, how do I got here? When I was 17. When I was 17, during my high school senior year, my school, there was a shooting there. My father was the chief of the police in the border, and there was a message for him with that shooting. And someone from the cartels, they sent a note to my dad saying this was just, it was not a missing point or target. It was just a message for you. So my dad decided that it was time for me and my sister, my youngest sister, to leave, to be sent to the US to be safe. So I crossed here when I was 17. Unfortunately, I was caught, And I had to spend almost a year in a detention center. And I still can feel the chains in my hands and in my ankles. I still remember the fluorescent lights all day because you get up at 5 a.m. I still remember being afraid. I still remember the cold, cold air, the AC on. You were freezing to death. And I was just 17. But I still remember too, a lady that was next to me saying, "Don't worry, Mika. Don't worry, baby. Everything will be okay. This is not forever." She was telling me the truth. But at 17, being in jail, it was not the dream that I was seeking. And I was not coming here because I wanted to. I was being sent here. So when I was there, my only thing was like, God, if you want me to go back to my country, just send me home. But what a surprise it was that while I was interviewed by the officers, I was being told that I was being deported to Colombia. Because of my accent. I don't know if I have a Mexican accent or I don't know. But they said, you're not Mexican. And they wanted to deport me to Colombia. So I know how many people feel now when they say, we're gonna deport you to El Salvador when you're not from El Salvador. Or I'm gonna deport you to Africa when you're not from Africa, whatever. I know how you feel because you don't know anybody in that country. You might speak the same language, but you have no idea what is going on in that country. And I was 17 and I was just told, like, we're gonna send you to Colombia. Thanks God they didn't. They made me sing the national anthem, tell the history of Mexico. Thanks God I was good in school, so I was able to navigate that. But all that experience brought me to this place. It shaped who I am now. I know that I was called since that moment. I know that God was preparing me for something. I didn't know what it was, but I know God was doing something. So, moving forward, to these times, especially in the last few years when we have receiving a lot of people seeking a dream and seeking freedom and seeking safety and seeking so many dreams. Because we don't leave everything behind just because we want to. We leave everything behind for reasons. Because you're hungry and starving, or because you fear for your safety, like in my case, my dad. Because you want to do something better, and there's no opportunities in your country. And that's why we travel here. So when I was able, through Dallas Response in Oakland and Gracia Viva, the church that I work for in Dallas Response is the outreach program that we have together, I was receiving buses of asylum seekers every single day. We were receiving around 500 people per week. And I know those numbers are really, really high, but they was not compared to the numbers that we received nationally. And when we think about immigration, the first probably phase that we connect to immigration is Latinos and Hispanic. Well, during my time in Dallas Response, I was able to receive people from all over the world. 25 countries was the largest ones that they sent us. You name it, Turkish, India, Russia, China, Vietnam, Latin America, yes, of course, Cuban, you name it, all over. But it was more than that. This was something global. It was not a brown face. It was people from all over the world.
Right.
So that called that crisis at the border called me to do something. Why? Because I know that I was there before. I know the experience of being in a detention center. I know how it was and how it felt, and people when they were coming through our doors and afraid, thinking that we were another facility, another immigration facility. And when we were saying, we are a church, they couldn't believe that. And I'm a pastor. I mean, I'm not wearing color every day, okay? So like I was wearing jeans and shorts and t-shirts and all that. And I was like, I'm one of the pastors. But to make that connection with them, to eat with them, to be with them, and to make them feel human again, to be able to treat them as who they are and not being called by number. I remember myself being a number in jail. You lose your identity, you lose your name, you lose everything. And you're just waiting there in a room in jail, hoping to get something from the outside world. A letter, a phone call, something. And sometimes it's just that waiting that hurts the most. Because it is uncertain, you don't know what's gonna happen, nobody's telling you, and even if they wanna tell you, they don't speak your language. And I don't speak their language. So I was trapped, just trying to survive on that moment. And when we talk about crossing lines, it's not about crossing only the borders. It is also to know that immigration is not about statistics. It's to know that these are people. And we as a community, I mean, we are called to advocate, to organize, to protect, to love. And if that is too much, at least to be compassionate and to treat others as you want to be treated. At the end, that's what all we want. And when we are serving others, we know that we are doing what we are called to do. We know that we belong here. We know that we have a space. We know that we are not alone. So all that to remember that we are created to be in community. That creation didn't start with one human being. Creation started and it begins when there was more than one person there. So we are created to be in community, and that's what we are called. And that's what I do, and that's what I get up early, and that's what I get arrested, and that's what I go to every protest that I can, because I know that my presence matters.
Thank you. Okay, you've given a lawyer a mic, so someone might need to cut me off as we go. I took the instruction pretty broadly, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, just so you know and kind of where I'm coming from. After a lot of thought, I kind of realized my push is because I have a relatively large chip on my shoulder that I've developed over a period of time. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's softened over the last few years, but at one point it was kind of hard. Both my parents were from Dallas. My grandparents were from Dallas. We've been here for a number of years, well over 100 years here in this area. And my grandmother on my mother's side, down in the valley, since the 1500s, came over from Spain and were situated there and then have been there historically for hundreds of years. My father's father was from Mexico. When I was a little baby, my mother took me to go see my great-grandfather who was dying. He was sick and he was dying, and he was her favorite grandparent. So I went to go see him, and then he lifted me up, and in Spanish he said, "This is a very serious baby. He's going to be a lawyer someday." Oh. And of course that got into my mother's head. More about that in a second. got in my mother's head. That was her thought process. My first memory, and I was thinking about this the other day, my first memory is of watching Mighty Joe Young. You guys remember Mighty Joe Young? He looked like King Kong. It was on television. I had 2 older brothers. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. They weren't born yet. And we're watching Mighty Joe Young. It's at the end of that movie where Mighty Joe Young holds up the lady that he's saving, and the island is sinking, right? And he's underwater, and he's saving this lady. And I was very upset when his hand went under the water. And they saved the lady, but Mighty Joe Young passed. So I went up to the TV, and clear as day, I can see it now. He's wearing those little white booties that kids used to wear. I kicked the television set, and I broke a small piece of the plastic off. And my brothers, of course, they throw a fit. Oh, we're going to tell Mom, we're going to tell Mom. They went and told my mother, and my mother comes in. She goes, what's happening? All right, when your dad gets home, you're going to explain that to him. I didn't really know who my father was at that point. I was afraid of him. I think I had this thought of who he was. So I'm scared the whole evening. I fall asleep. My mother comes in, wakes me up. She says, your dad's outside. He wants to talk to you. So I go up into the living room, and I see my dad sitting there on a chair, very tired, been working all day, big black jacket on, a knit cap on his head, just tired. And I know he didn't want to do this. And he says to me, you kicked the TV? I said, yes, sir. He goes, oh, don't do that anymore. Go to bed. So I go to bed. Flash forward, I'm 8 years old. I'm working with that man, my father. He's an electrician. We're working in Highland Park. And he tells me to go out to the van to get a screwdriver. So I go out to the van, and it's this was the early 70s, and my father had created, I think in the late 60s, this Good Times van. They were in vogue at the time. There's like a teardrop on the side of it. It had become his work truck, and it was pretty beat up, right? We're in this mansion in Highland Park, and I'm rifling through the van, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around, and it's 2 Highland Park police officers. I say, what the hell are you doing here? I said, well, my dad's inside. We're putting some fans in. I said, go get them. So I go inside. I say, hey, Dad, there's 2 cops outside. They want to talk to you. And my dad, this bigger than life in my eyes, strong man, looks at me, and there's terror on his face. And I couldn't believe it. He goes outside. The cops say, what are you doing here? I say, well, we're just putting these fans in. Well, let's see some ID. Shows him the ID. All right. You see those, they use this N-word. You see those N-word ladies getting on those buses over there? When they leave, your butt is out of here also. And my father said, yes, sir. And that was my first kind of impression about what I was kind of dealing with as the other. We didn't belong there. I felt that. I went to St. Thomas Aquinas, wonderful school, wonderful education. There was probably 3 or 4 Latino families, Hispanic families there, no African Americans in the school. And they always treated us poorly, differently. We had probably 75% were nuns, and these nuns were tough. All the stories that you could have heard, and they're 80, 90 years old, and you knew they had a past, but there were a couple of them that just picked on me, and for no reason. I was a good kid. I didn't get in trouble. There was no real reason for it, and I didn't realize it at the time. I just felt like I didn't belong. One day, I'm out at recess, and the bottom of my shoe is coming off. And I got to figure out how to get this thing fixed. I glue it up. I get the Elmer's glue. I try to fix it. It won't stay. It won't hold. I go to my mom. Hey, Mom, I need some new shoes. And I know what that meant. That was something that, wasn't easy. You didn't easily get new stuff. And so she goes, no problem. So she goes to a garage sale, which she loved to do. And she comes home with these shoes, and she brings them, and there's those shoes with the big buckle on the front. And they really did look like pilgrim shoes, the pilgrim shoes look. And I was like, oh no. I didn't say anything to her because I didn't want to cause any problems, any trouble. And I wore them to school that Monday, and Sister Elvina comes up to me and says, what are you wearing? Those look like pilgrim shoes. Stand up in the front of the classroom, show everybody your pilgrim shoes. So I stood up there, and for 10 minutes, the kids started making fun, every joke you could think of about pilgrim shoes. And honestly, I felt like I deserved it. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't deserve to be there. And I should take these insults because I knew what was going to happen. I felt that way for a very long time, a long period of time. I became a lawyer. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I want to highlight my English teacher, Ms. Gonzalez, who's sitting right there. Wonderful teacher. As we were mentioning earlier, there's a couple, 2 or 3 teachers that you always remember, right, as the ones that just had an incredible impact on you as a person. And she was definitely one of those individuals. I'd love to give her a round of applause if you guys don't mind. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, first in my family to go to college. Honestly, didn't really believe that I was going to finish there. I was just happy that I was able to get in and go. After a period of time, I was like, hey, I'm about to graduate. This whole law school thing might actually happen for me. My mother, when I told you about hearing the fact that I was very serious and I was going to be a lawyer someday, when I was 6 years old, she went to this garage sale. The garage sale she just loved going to, and she bought me a set of Vernon statutes. Those are the black books. We call them the black books because they have all the laws in them. About 12, a set of 12. And she brings them home. I'm 6 years old, and of course I couldn't read them. When I could read them, I was like, what is this water right stuff? I don't want to be a lawyer. This stuff, it sounds awful. But I still have those books right there near my desk to this day. She pushed me quietly to become a lawyer. I didn't really realize it until I became an adult, really was thoughtful about how that all transpired. I became a lawyer, I started practicing law, started a family, had the opportunity to become a clinical professor at SMU Law School. I ran the consumer advocacy clinic for a period of time until that grant ended. Before COVID, I had the opportunity to teach an immigration class, an asylum class, and then I would take the students down during spring break to Carnes detention facility. And at the time, the detention facility was primarily engaged in family, which mainly meant women and their children. First case when we get there, we were working with RAICES, an organization that helps the legal side of helping people kind of formulate what happens when they get released, and then also assisting them in processing their asylum claims. This lady was from El Salvador. She was with her son. He was about 14, 15 years old. We went to this room. This is the first case that we got. Raisa said, can you please help us with this? You know, we don't have the manpower to help, and we have a hearing tomorrow or the next day. I forgot how long it was. But we need some help with the research on this thing. I said, sure. We'll be happy to speak with her. So I've got my 4 students, and they have a detention facility. It's probably smaller than this area, but then they have rooms on the sides where you can go in and talk and do certain things. And then they have a carpet right in the middle of this big open area. It's about 15 by 15. It's got little children's books and little chairs, situated, because when the women would come in and talk to the lawyers, the children could sit there and read the books, right? So she comes in, she says, I don't want my son in here right now. Could you let him sit outside? I said, absolutely. So I'm sitting there, and the students are doing the interview in Spanish, and I just kind of look out the doorway there, and the boy, who's bigger than me, he was a big kid for 15, is sitting there in one of these small chairs, and I just remember thinking, that is a really weird sight. He's reading these books. She begins her story. She was from El Salvador. She had been making the journey from El Salvador about 4 or 5 days prior. She had made her way up through Mexico, and she was there, and she needed help. She tells us that she had been in prison for the last 8 years there in El Salvador, and this was one of the reasons why she wasn't entitled to asylum. If you've been convicted of a felony in your home country, you're not entitled to asylum according to our immigration laws. So we were trying to figure out her story and how we might be able to appeal to the judge to make an exception. It's going to be a very rough uphill battle. 8 years prior, she had been selling clothes in front of the place where she lived. Some gangs that approached her said, hey, look, you need to give us $30 a month or we're going to kill your kid. And she didn't take it as seriously at the beginning, and they continued to make phone calls to her. So she started paying the $30 that she could just not afford to pay. She told them that she could no longer do it after a period of time, said, okay, we're going to take you to the jail. You're going to go in there, you're going to talk to this man, you're going to be his wife. You're his wife, you tell the people that, and then you do whatever he asks you to do. So she did that for a period of time. Then they told her, next Saturday, we want you to meet at the park. We're going to take you back to the prison, and we're going to give you something. We're going to have you take it to the man that you've been saying has been your husband. She said, I don't want to do that. She said, well, we know where your son is, and you're going to do it. So they take her, they secrete about 14 ounces of marijuana inside of her, tell her to take it inside. She does that. She gets caught almost immediately, and they of course arrest her, convict her. She's given 10 years. She does 8 years. Literally the day she goes home, she starts getting those phone calls again, saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. That was about a week before she had started the journey. She gets her son, she comes up and does that to save his life. She knew she was going to be deported. She knew it was going to happen. She knew there wasn't an exception. We did everything that we could. These kids stayed up all night trying to figure out what to do in terms of a response. It didn't work. She was deported. But she said, as long as my son can stay, I'll be okay. And that's what happened. That had an incredible impact on me. Had an incredible impact, of course, on the students that worked the case. And it kind of gave me a different sense of realizing who these folks are. I mean, you kind of know it, you kind of hear it, but what we're hearing today has nothing to do with the humanity that is coming to our country. People looking for not only a better life, but survival, literal survival. These are the things that you don't hear from the mainstream media. These are the things that you don't hear, certainly from this administration. But oh yes, we've got we've shut down the border. Oh, that's wonderful. How many people are dying because they can't come in here and claim what our law says they're entitled to, which is asylum. You are entitled. Our laws entitle you to asylum, and we've closed down the borders. And nobody's raising a stink about it, except good people who are in the know. Unfortunately, not enough people know. Not enough people are taking action. So I love that we're having this panel today. I hope the stories provide an impact for you to do something about them. I know you wouldn't be here if you didn't have that sense of it. But what can you do? You can encourage people to register. You can encourage people to vote, especially young people. I'll just be really honest with you. We got to get our country back because we are losing it. Day by day, we are losing this country. And I'm talking about the very democracy that is the linchpin of who we are as a country. We're losing it day by day. And this isn't the country that it was a year ago. I don't recognize it. And I know many of you don't either. But you've got to take action to do something about it. I am so sorry. I spoke so long. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandra, did you want to share anything else about your story?
Oh, wow.
Or even what you're doing all this work right now. And I mean, we had a conversation on Friday, some of us, about what would happen if they took you. And so maybe you can, whatever you're comfortable sharing about your story and about kind of this decision to continue engaging in this work.
Yeah, I think just to kind of piggyback off what Eric was saying, how much and how rapidly our immigration system has evolved. When I came into this country with my family and arrived here in August of 1996, at that time, at least from our experience, if you were caught at the border, you were just caught and then deported, right? You were not held in a facility. So for me, when I think about my experience about crossing, and then my experience when I see especially during the era of where we had kiddos in the detention center in the hieleras, and I would see the images of the kiddos, they were crossing, just like I was at 7 years old, and I could not, begin to even process what it was to be in there, because even though I had my own experience of arriving here and I had my own hurdles getting here, I did not experience that. And so for me, it was so heartbreaking to see that. And then it definitely motivated me to be more in the movement, because I know there was a time before this, right? I know there was a time before people were kept in hieleras. I know that it was a time before when folks that were applying for asylum seeking were actually being heard and processed. And now we're in a time where we're utilizing this as an opportunity to make money, to profit, right? And so for me, it's also understanding just the history of how ICE came into operation, of how it wasn't until after September 11th that we started transforming this system that was originally supposed to just to capture terrorists. And when that was not happening, then we started capturing undocumented people and holding them in detention centers. And then after that, how different companies got involved to make profit off of that. And so it's very important that we know that history and that piece of why things are where we are now, right? And how through utilizing verbiage that hurts and targets our communities is how we are able to other folks, and how we're able to rob away their humanity and make them less than. And that's why it's okay to keep them in ICE facilities. It's okay that we label them criminals, even though their own crime is just like mine, coming into this country undocumented, right? And then yet some of us, unfortunately, have a harsher experience, and then are taken away from the opportunity to be heard in court. And so I really want us to sit on that.
Yeah. Eric, so we have some folks in our congregation, we go to courts to observe. Can you maybe explain a little bit about what people are going to court? Like when we say they're going to court and we're going to observe, can you, from a legal standpoint, talk about what that is? Because I think some people think, oh, they're going because they're criminals, and that's not what it is at all.
Absolutely. Of course, immigration is usually in the civil context. You're talking about people who've been issued an NTA, a notice to appear. When you come into this country, even if you're claiming asylum or some other thing, you'll almost automatically be given a notice to appear. And what that is you start going to court. If you have any relief, because there's potential, people have relief, they may be able to stay here in this country, do the process appropriately, legally. There's a number of things that you can ask for. DACA is prosecutorial discretion. The judge and the government can allow you to continue to stay if you don't have certain violative actions. So court, in that sense, is, hey, how am I going to be able to stay here? What am I going to do to be able to continue being here? Some people affirmatively request asylum or other things. It takes a while to kind of get a resolution when you start immigration court, when you get these notices to appear. You've got calendars, master calendar hearings, you've got trials, you've got things that are kind of set up, but you're expressing your relief. You're doing it legally, all the legal things. One of the scariest things that I've never seen before. Now, I have dabbled, of course, in immigration for a lengthy period of time. My sister and I used to have a partnership of immigration. She was primarily an immigration attorney. I saw how things worked. I've got immigration attorneys in my office that work the process. To have ICE show up at a hearing is unfathomable prior to this year. Prior to this year, that would not happen. Now they are picking up people wherever they can. And it is a craziness that we've never seen. People who are kind of looking at it and seeing it can't believe it. And why? Because we've just given $400 billion for infrastructure on this big, beautiful bill that is supposed to come out. It's truly a kleptocracy that we're going through. It is taking away all of these taxpayer monies and giving them to someone explicitly. There are three main corporations that benefit incredibly from the detention of immigrants. And if you don't have immigrants to detain, this $400 billion for infrastructure, if we don't get those built and have people in there, it's about $450 a day that these groups are paid per person. Every day. They make so much money that you wouldn't believe it, of course. Everything that we're putting towards those things is how do we figure out how we can steal from this area and give it to the people I want to benefit, my rich billionaire friends. That's what we're looking at. That's the reality of it. This is why we're seeing as these monies are going out more and more daily from this big, beautiful bill. So we got to fight. The government shutdown is a very bad thing, and it's hurting a lot of people. But if we don't fight for some of this stuff, where are we going to be? We're going to be without health. I'm not going to jump on a rant, but this is where all this stuff is about to happen.
Yes, yeah.
Once we come out of this, and once we start allotting those monies, we're going to start seeing ICE everywhere. ICE everywhere. And I am fearful for the churches. I am fearful for things that we always held sacred. Oh, they will never come here. They will never do this. They're going everywhere. It's just going to happen. We've seen a huge uptick locally, Northeast Dallas and other areas. It has been historically, you're looking at Chicago and LA and others where there's that high profile stuff. It's just as the money starts flowing, it's going to happen everywhere. And these are going to be truly your neighbors. These are truly going to be your friends. I know some of y'all have already experienced that. How can we help? We get calls every day. This person has been detained, and then we try to figure out the relief, and there's no relief there. So it's very unfortunate, but absolutely not. These people are doing everything right. If you want to kind of engage in that line of back and forth, these people are doing everything right. They're fearful not to show up. After the shooting that happened on Stemmons at the ICE facility, people were showing up the next day because they didn't want to miss their appointments. My goodness, don't show up. Some bad stuff could happen. So we had to go out there and send out flyers and, hey, they're closed until this day, because they did not want to miss their appointments. So a lot of good people doing the best that they can to continue making things happen for themselves.
I went to Chicago 2 weeks ago for Baptist News Global, and I would just encourage everybody. I mean, it is shocking what's happening there. Agents throwing tear gas in front of school play yards, and the teachers having to get the kids inside, people showing up on Sundays, people locking the doors of the church to keep people in there for hours just to keep them from going out. If you've seen, there's the facility where they're taking people, which is right outside of Chicago, and protesters are there every day, and ICE agents have shot clergy with the rubber-encased tear gas, shot them in the face. So, I mean, it is, and to your point, I think it is just a matter of time before we see it fully to that. But things are already happening, so maybe the two of you who are really working in the communities can talk about kind of what is happening on the ground here in Dallas right now.
So some of the things is that we are seeing is that folks that have upcoming hearings are now being targeted at their homes. Now they're being picked up at their homes. We are seeing that folks that are also going to the field office just to do the check-in that kind of Eric was talking about, they're also being kept there. They're also being held there until they're able to be sent off to an actual detention center. And again, these are folks that are in the middle of an application, seeking asylum. They're in the middle of an application. There's no reason why they should be inside of a detention center. Folks that are on the DACA, there's no reason. There is absolutely no reason for folks that, that are just living everyday life to be targeted at the airport and picked up and taken to an ICE facility and held there for almost 2 months, right? There's no reason for folks that are just living life on the regulars, get pulled over for a traffic violation, and then within an hour, an ICE agent shows up and is being taken to an ICE facility. No reason. So those are some things that we are experiencing and that we're working to target to counter that, right? Because as that's also happening, and one that, that's a lot of what's affecting is that they go into spaces even at an apartment complex where they're gonna go target one individual and they end up taking collateral. And that's another big number that we're seeing. They go in there saying that they're looking for, Jose Manuel Martinez, and out of there you're taking 5-6 more individuals, right? And so these are the things, again, and the data shows it. A lot of the individuals that are being taken in are individuals with no criminal background, right? The only thing they're doing is in the middle of an asylum seeking application, or they're under DACA, or they're under TPS, whatever it might be.
They're also taking citizens. I mean, they're scooping.
Yes.
The idea is like, oh, there's somebody who's brown or black, and I'm going to take them with me. And then they sort it all out back at the facility, and oh, oops, we have this citizen here, right?
I think it was about 170 folks that we know of that are U.S. citizens that have been taken, right? And then it goes back to the numbers that are that Eric was sharing. It's like they need bodies inside of the facilities to then meet their quota and be able to charge for that.
Did you have anything to add?
The oppression or the targeting, for the racial profiles. I mean, it's not anymore if you are a citizen or not. I mean, it's just about you look like this, you are going in. In my church, we had the scenario that I went to knock on the apartment complex, and they were knocking on each door at 5:30 a.m. Thanks God this couple were not there, but they took friends and another people from the neighborhood. And they went to another second day, again the next day, ICE. And I was like, let's go. We pick up the things that they could pick up on that time, and it's like, the rest, you can rebuild it again. Let's go. Let's find a safe space for you. So we took the whole family with kids and everything, and we find a new place for them. But one thing that it was shocking for me, hearing about what happened in Chicago, what is happening. I just came back from Las Vegas yesterday for a convention that I was from churches, and we're learning and trying to explore faith together. And one of the things that we came out with that is at the end of that convention, they give us whistles to everyone. And let me tell you why. That's been the tool and the way in how people is organizing as well. They use the whistle whenever they see any ICE agent in the neighborhood. And they whistle, and then another person, maybe a block away, is gonna hear that whistle too. And they're gonna whistle too, and another one, and another one. So the whole plan is for people to be able to protect the neighbors. Who is your neighbor? Have you seen around you? Who lives in the next door? Who lives across the street from you? How can we help? Well, when we don't want to go protest, or we don't have the capacity to go, or when we're finding creative ways to do it, trust me, right now, this can be a very creative way to do it. So let's buy a lot of whistles.
Yeah. So that's one of the things they're doing in Chicago, right?
Yes, that's the thing
and
that
they
they're doing
all
there.
I went on a tour with a United Methodist pastor, actually took me around her neighborhood where her church was and where they had been taking people. And it was just part of her, like, as she was walking out the door, she's putting on her whistle, and she also had to go buy a gas mask and all those things, but they all wear the whistles everywhere they go to that point.
So if I can plug in right quick. We are creating kits where we're giving those to apartment complexes We're going into different apartment complexes, having conversations about making sure you have a privacy waiver prepared so that when you are detained, we're able to either locate you with a congressman or a congress member, or be able to have an attorney that can help us locate you. Because right now, because of the government shutdown, the ICE locator is down, and so we're heavily depending on other entities to be able to locate folks. So privacy waiver is key, encouraging families that have kiddos to have a power of attorney ready so that the kiddos will be ready. And then for the folks that live in the city of Dallas, and everyone that lives in the city of Dallas, I want everybody to get an enhanced library card. An enhanced library card is a way for you to identify yourself, so we want everybody to be utilizing that as a tool also. And then we're giving them a kit like this that has the famous Know Your Rights card that we want everybody to have in their vehicles and at hand in their home. And then there's also a vecinos pamphlet that talks about if you need acompañamiento to go to court, to sign up for that. And then the whistle that we are talking about right now, we're asking everybody to have a whistle. That way, if you're seeing activity, what we're noticing in the data is that it looks like somewhere between 4:30 and about 6:30, they're picking up folks, right? And they're heading out to go to work. So if you see something, start whistling and let the other folks go in. Let the other folks know. So that way, if there's folks that are that can know, they can also just go back into their homes and unfortunately wait it out. And so plug it in. We'll take in donations to also be able to create the kits, to be able to support our communities.
Yeah. Really quickly, if I might, last Friday we had a number of organizations, incredible grassroots organizations, got together in front of City Hall talking against any type of 287G partnership with the federal government. People like, 287G, what is that? Why and what? What does that mean? What is the relation? Chief Como said no to the monies coming from ICE to create a 287G program with respect to the Dallas Police Department. Currently, our sheriff, and historically here in Dallas County, we've had a relationship with the federal government through 287G. And what that is just a federal law that allows cities, localities to work with the federal government on immigration, helping them in a sense. And in our current Dallas County jail, we have ICE officers who check, they go around literally asking people, where are you from? What country are you from? If you're not from the United States, they'll look into you deeper. They'll see if they need to place a hold on you so that when you get bail or you get released, they can put you in deportation proceedings or take you away quickly. That is the county jail, which is it's been something that we've had for a number of times. Our sheriffs have consistently said, well, we need the money, we get cut off. I don't know about all that. I've always had an issue with it or problem with it. But if the Dallas Police Department were ever to create a 287G partnership with the federal government, could you imagine the fear that would instill in communities across the board? Anytime you see a police officer who you're supposed to respect, ask for help, could you imagine how many people would have to hide, would not become witnesses, wouldn't call the police department? Because if they come to your house, they're going to ask you who you are, let us see some ID, and then, you know what, this person isn't here legally, or there's a question there. Let me call my buddy who's actually part of the 287G program, get him over here and have this person deported. That would have an incredibly unsafe effect on everything across the board. And this is what I wanted to bring up. More people need to understand that, and more people need to realize, one, what it is, and two, do something to talk against it. Our mayor said, hey, let's revisit this. And I don't want to get overly political. Why in the heck would we do that? Why in the world would he want to have something like that? Who is he beholden to that he would do that? But it's a question that is going to go before the city council. And luckily, we've had some incredible city council members say, hey, look, we're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. But people need to speak out against it. People like you. So you got to know what it is they're talking about. And then two, do something to speak up. Too many people are just being quiet. Too many people are just riding these waves. Too many people are saying nothing when this president is blowing up ships in the Caribbean. What in the world are we doing? What are we doing? speak up.
So if I could plug that in, November 6th at 9 a.m., there will be a hearing about it. So we definitely encourage folks that if you're available at that time to come out to City Hall and support us. You can also, soon we will be sharing out a script where folks can also call their council member and remind them and let them know how we feel about this. So please be in the lookout for our postings about how you can call, and also the reminders of how you can show up to City Hall. And then for some that are, especially if you're in District 12, please register to speak that day.
Okay, so you've already started touching on it. So some actionable things, right, that people can do. Do you have other things that, speaking out, going to protests, obviously we're doing the court watching. What else?
Also, what I believe that we need to do too is, as churches and other organizations, not only organize, but also create safe spaces.
Can you define that for us? And what does that look like?
We need to be creative with the spaces and facilities that we have, so we can create policies to create those spaces, because we know that we haven't seen yet the worst part. So, and we need to be able to protect our people. And if we have these beautiful, huge infrastructures, let us use them as they should be, to be sanctuaries for people that are looking for safety in all their whole lives, not only spiritually, but holistic. So, yes.
Really, I'm so sorry, really quickly, in terms of legality, this is something we're doing, Dallas MABA, Mexican American Bar Association, is educating, because we've seen an uptick in the number of apartment complexes that are being hit. And of course, the people who are afraid to come back home, hey, they went and they took my neighbors, I'm not going back there. It's the actual apartment managers that are coming saying, hey, what can we do, to let people know what's up. You've got to understand, if you're an owner or a controller of a property, you can deny access. That's where the whole consent comes from. In an apartment complex, the common areas may not be under your purview. You can't necessarily protect the parking lot, for example, if it's open to the public. But you can certainly protect the inside, the common areas within the structure. If an apartment manager knows this, I'm not letting you in. You don't have the ability, I'm not providing consent. And if they violate consent, there's something called the Bivens action. You can actually take a lawsuit and sue the individual agents individually for violating constitutional rights. So if somebody overwhelms you and says, hey, we're coming in anyway, all right, let me know, and we will sue them under a Bivens action. Now, unfortunately, our Supreme Court has kind of retracted the ability to do some of these Bivens actions. Imagine that. It's happening more and more, but it's still there. It's still something that can be, because these agents know this. Hey, look, would you like a Bivens action filed against you? That is scary for an individual agent to say, oh crap, they know what a Bivens action is. If you can just use the terminology, especially somebody who's in control, who can kind of protect or speak the language, certainly in a church, you're not coming in here. You are not coming in here. And if they do it anyway, then you will be able to take action, and we'll be there to help you, support you in terms of filing a lawsuit.
Can I follow up on that? Because
Absolutely.
in Chicago, a lot of privately owned businesses have put up signs that very explicitly say, this is a private business, ICE federal agents are not allowed to step foot. And so we've talked about some clergy. We just had a conversation on Friday about how, is that something that we can roll out here in Dallas?
Absolutely, absolutely. People need to understand that, because it's always a close question. When you get federal agents knocking at your door, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to comply. I've got to do what they tell me to do. No, you don't. Now, they may do it anyway. They may knock the door down, and they may do whatever's there. And in a criminal context, that usually means, well, you know what? The fruit of the poisonous tree, if you're going to do that, well, we're going to exclude all the evidence that kind of comes in. In a criminal context, all you really have is that lawsuit against those individual agents, or perhaps against the federal government. But believe me, when you say Bivens action against you, they know what that means, because they know they can individually be sued for something, at the very least a lawsuit. I don't know if it'll stay, and I don't know what our Supreme Court is doing with Kavanaugh coming out and saying that, racial profiling is okay. I don't get it. I don't know where we are, how this makes sense to anyone, but there's just so much, there's no separation of powers anymore. And that is just overly concerning for me as a lawyer.
Yeah, a couple of things, I think. One, I know we had conversations about having congregations that encourage their members to have the privacy waivers completed. Also, I know clergy is gonna be there on Monday, and we hopefully get more volunteers so that it's not just on Monday, but if we can have it every day and throughout the day where there's someone there that can give out privacy waivers to the folks.
Can you explain what that is? Because I don't know that everybody knows what we're talking about and why it's important.
Okay, and jump in at any point, Eric. I'm not an attorney. But the basic way that we're utilizing the power of the privacy waivers is so that we can use someone from Congress to help us locate that individual. So in the privacy waiver, you have the individual complete their full name, their A number, which is their alien number, which is the number that the Department of Homeland Security uses to track individuals. So anyone that ever becomes encounter with the department, they are given an automatic A number. I have a DACA application, so there I have an A number, and that's how the system is able to locate me, right? So then we have that, and then the person there gives consent that whoever holds that document, they can then be able to access information about them while they're being held in the facility, right? And so that is utilized by Congress to be able to help us locate folks. That is also can be used, by an attorney to also be able to help us and locate that individual. And clergy. So it's very, 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 very key that we have that document completed before an individual goes in and has an encounter with ICE, because you can complete the form once you're inside, but it becomes tricky because we did such a fantastic job in encouraging folks that if you ever get detained, not to sign anything, then now they're afraid to sign anything, right? But if we give them beforehand and we let them know, hey, this is an okay document that we do want you to sign, this is okay document that we want you, either clergy to have for you, or a family member that is a resident or a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen to have for you, that way we can help you locate you. Becomes key, right? So having different points where folks can complete that document is key. It has become very helpful for us. Another one is, of course, I'm gonna plug in having folks to take different roads in the federal building. And then now another thing that we're working towards is how do we organize folks like yourself that live in communities that have migrants, folks, and that way if you do see ICE activity and you're just going over there to get your morning coffee, right? Or if what we see in some of the videos, people are just walking their dogs early in the morning, and then all of a sudden they look up and it's ICE activity going on, right? And I mean, of course, your first instance is shock, but if you happen to have a whistle, that's a good opportunity for you to use that whistle, right? So opportunities.
And video.
Yes.
And capture it, right?
Yes.
Capturing ICE, but whistle first.
Whistle first. Now, if you do decide to do more, we do have trainings where if you want to capture, there's a couple of things that we want to make sure you capture. It's not just about capturing the action and uploading it to Facebook, but it's actually how can that video be used. We need someone's either a phone number where they want us to locate their loved one and let them know that they were taken. Sometimes loved ones don't find out that their loved ones were taken until they were supposed to come home and they never showed up. Or until, it's been a couple of days and they were supposed to show up to work and then finally their employer is looking for them, right? And it's not unfortunately until later time, which is, as time progresses, it becomes a little bit more difficult for us to track them, right? So definitely being proactive are some of the things that we're encouraging. So, ensuring there's some key things that you all can do at your own comfort level to help us uplift some of this work. I mean, even right now, as we're getting ready for that hearing at the City Hall, we're also going to be having phone banking to be able to call our council members and remind them to stand on the right side of history, right? To stand and support your community members, your neighbors, tus vecinos.
All right, I know we have some questions. How do you want to do, George, how do you want to do this? You want people just to shout it out?
Well, who has a question? Who would like to ask a question? Yes.
Oh, I do. I think, well, you know, obviously I'm brown and it's getting harder to exist being brown. So is there any advice? I mean, I carry my passport with me now, which is something I think I learned from my parents, you know, put this in a safe and never take it out. And now I have more copies that I know what to do with in my car, in my child's school. But I also don't want to, you know I have a passport, and then if I say something, how do we ensure that the grocery store where we go to, if something does happen, well, I know I'm okay and I have documents, how do we report something that we see? Who do we report it to other than live? Is there something we can do, or who do we call? I think it'd be important to know.
Does Vecinos have do we have a hotline here in Dallas yet?
Not yet. We're working on that. We're definitely working on getting a hotline together but that hotline is going to be more to report ICE activity and to be able to ask for assistance with locating a loved one, or if you need acompañamiento to go to court, which I forgot to mention. But we're also looking for individuals that can support folks as they're going in for a check-in or as they're going in for a court hearing. So that, again, that could be another layer for us to know, unfortunately, when someone is being taken, right? So we want to make sure that we have that. But as far as, I mean, I know that's one of the things that they're doing, U.S. citizens are doing, they're suing. They're suing because if you do get taken in, to report that you were unrightfully taken?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'll be really honest with you, it's been one that I think about with respect to my son. How would he prove that he's a U.S. citizen? I mean, how do you do that? How do we prove that we're U.S. citizens? Yeah. We don't carry these documents. We don't carry our birth certificate around with us. More than half of us don't have passports. It's a very difficult thing to kind of do, and that is in the current state of what I'm telling you. In the next few months, this is all going to be incredibly different. There's going to be a lot more ICE everywhere. Again, it's quietly happening with kind of the people in the know. We know that apartment complexes are being hit. We see in LA that the Home Depots are a harbinger of ICE activity. It's going to increase a lot more as things happen. Just always be calm, and I don't know status. If you're undocumented, then please be very careful about any encounter. If you are documented, then you should have those things on you that could at least identify who you are. Just like anybody else, most of it is collateral stuff. Most of it is, and it's kind of hard to say that, but if you look Latino, if you look Hispanic, and you speak English relatively well, telling them that you're a United States citizen, 9 times out of 10, as a collateral, you probably won't have issue. If they're looking for someone, however, they're going to dig deeper. If they're going to an apartment complex, if they're going to pick up Jose Rodriguez because they have a warrant out for his arrest, you better believe they're going to ask everybody within there and any other people that they can pick up, and they're going to do a much deeper dive in terms of what that looks like. But yes, it is something that people of color need to be a little bit more mindful of, and not only people of color, just across the board. And I think, again, with what Kavanaugh said, of course, Justice Kavanaugh, in terms of pulling back on what it means to racially profile, saying or suggesting that there's a context in which it's okay, that blows my mind. That is contrary to our history. That is contrary to Supreme Court precedent. But as we retract, as we start pulling a little bit, okay, well, you're brown, that may be enough. That may be enough next year. Just to ask you or ask you your status, that is enough. And it makes absolutely no sense, but that's the world we live in. And to be careful, we should carry the documentation to show that we are here legally in some way if you have it. And if you don't, I would really encourage, don't put yourself in a situation where you will have that encounter. Because they're all about numbers. They're shooting for 5,000 a day. Yep. They're at about 30. There's a 33, 3,500 they're looking at. They're not meeting those numbers yet. And of course, Stephen Miller, who's running this whole thing, is the one who's kind of saying, we don't have the numbers. They better go up as this money starts coming in. So it's going to get a lot worse.
Yep. Other questions?
How is Royal Lane as a church balancing congregant safety versus ICE and neighborhood wackos?
That's a good question. I will have to get back to you. I mean, like, we have our police here, right, in terms of the quote-unquote neighborhood wackos. In terms of ICE, we have not sat down as a church, and that's something we needed to do to figure out what happens when ICE walks up to our door. I will tell you, Cooperative Baptist Fellowship churches like Wilshire, not that it matters, but Cooperative Baptist Fellowship is part of the original lawsuit protecting congregations, the very first one that was filed in January with Quakers and Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. I have quietly been suggesting to the staff that we revisit becoming a Cooperative Baptist Fellowship aligned congregation to sort of fall under that, because right now, Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, there are other different denominations that are part of the lawsuit but are supposedly off limits while the lawsuit works its way through. But I think that's definitely a conversation we're going to have. I think it's a conversation all congregations have to have at this point.
On regard, I can speak for my own congregation too. We do have bilingual services, so we do have a lot of Latino people there. And that's why it was urgent for us to create policies around the building first. And second, to train the whole staff. It was trainings to make sure that everybody knows how a warrant looks like, how it needs to be, what details to look for, and to be able to know that they're not allowed just because they are saying that there are eyes, they are allowed everywhere. I mean, we have, churches are private properties. We need to know that. Churches are private property. So not just because they were in a uniform or just because they're saying they're eyes, they're gonna go in with all the freedom they want. So that's the first thing that we need to do, and know. So, and then we create policies around our building and also train the people, making sure that everybody knows what to do if anybody appears during worship or not during worship. Because we are open, churches are open every day, and we receive people every day, so we want everyone to be safe. So, and that's why we create this. So, but everybody needs to be on board. So that's why we have drills, and we try to train everybody, and we have copies of warrants all over the place, making sure that you look for these details, making sure that you know how to direct who you're gonna call if they show up. If you don't know how to answer, you don't have to answer. I mean, that's another thing that we do. We have the right to remain in silence. We don't have to engage with them. You have that right, and we have that right. So if you don't know what to do, or how to act, or whatever, just say, like, you know what? I'm gonna call somebody else. And just move on. And you have all the rights, at least in churches, because that was the question, to tell these persons to stay on a place or outside until somebody comes and encounter with them.
And let me really quickly say this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't. My sister was the right-hand person to Sarah Saldana. Sarah was the ICE director under the Obama administration. I've known a lot of ICE agents historically over the years, some of them really good people. I just want to make sure that we understand that they're human beings, that this is an administration directive, and kind of coming down, the requirements that they pick up on numbers and other things, but we are seeing an uptick in what ICE is doing in a very scary way, shooting at people protesting with rubber bullets, intentionally trying to hit them with rubber bullets. That's very scary. And as they bring on more people who are not trained, who perhaps are joining ICE for the very reason of wanting to do this, of getting some sort of thrill, we've got to be mindful of that. We, of course, would never encourage anyone to hurt anyone else, hurt human beings, hurt ICE agents. Like I said, I've known this, I've been around this for 30 years and I've seen them, and a lot of them are really good people. So let's be mindful of that as well in terms of how we speak about people, what we do, and never turn, and I know nobody here, but I have no idea where this is going to go out to. But there are people who are very upset with what's happening currently, and they'll utilize that being upset to kind of justify some of the other actions that they might take, and that would hurt my heart. This gentleman who I had the opportunity to represent, the individual, the woman who lost her husband in the shooting on Stemmons, and things like that, I would hate to see continue to happen. And we've got to be mindful of our words. We've got to be mindful of what it is we're saying. We've got to resume our sanity, but I think at that administration level, we've got to do it in the context of retaking the ballot box, doing it in our democratic way to kind of make things happen. But at some point, the protest, the freedom of speech, they're there for a reason, and they've been effective. We've seen it happen. We saw it in the 60s. It worked. Good people got hurt in the process of doing that. Good people got arrested in the process of doing that, but more people need to stand up and do it in that nonviolent way.
Other questions?
I have another one, and mostly I kind of piggybacking off of that. I know there's a lot of blurred lines now with what's happening, and you hear of people who, I guess, feel like they want to tell. So when they enter like a bystander or sacred spaces, right, our stores, our churches, is there something to look out for when you see somebody who maybe obviously is not dressed like, we see the ICE agents everywhere, but is coming in to report like, hey, there's, this is a Hispanic church, or this is a church that considers themselves a safe space, especially with kind of all the rhetoric around the last, call it 45 days, around everything. Like, is there something, if we see something, I guess, going back to the see something, say something, like, is there a place to say something? How do we report it? What do we look out for? Especially since you guys are in the front lines or see it more than we would. Like, what do we recognize or what do we look out for?
So there is a website, it's called iceout.org, where you are able to upload an image and pin it of where the location of where that is happening, and that way it alerts folks to be careful with that space. That's one of the ways to kind of report it, and hopefully soon we will also have a hotline where folks can also report it. We're being strategic of how we are, bringing it out, but one, and then two, from our end is also creating the infrastructure where folks can arrive to site and double check that in effect there's some ICE activity happening, and it's not, we're definitely working on to balancing, balance, we don't want to add on to the fear mongering that's happening, but we're also managing how do we keep people safe as much as possible, because at this point it's also about just people's safety, right, and the aggression of what we're experiencing, right? So how do we balance the both? It's definitely going to be key, but yes, for now it's iceout.org, and then the other one is that hopefully the hotline.
And I'll just piggyback on the iceout.org is national. Mm-hmm. And so when I was in Chicago, I would pull it up and I could see, so if you see something, like if you see ICE agents, right, and you snap a photo and you pin it, that is video proof, and so that place on the map will be red. Versus somebody who's like, I just saw it, but I didn't get a picture, can still report it, and that'll be like green, like, so, and that data is, what do you call it, erased every night. So every day starts a new day, so that people who feel like they need to go out, right, they can look at that map and see if where they're going, if there has been any red activity that day. So I just wanted to explain what that was. And so that I guess is I will say, again, I brought some learnings back from Chicago. They're starting a hotline now for people to be able to report sightings. And I don't know what we would have to do we'll have an offline conversation about that, about how that could be used. But I have a final question, but before I ask it, are there other questions? Okay, what is giving you hope right now? And it could be as simple as a podcast that you love. What is the thing that is keeping you afloat?
The thing that is consistently kept me afloat is for me, with respect to how our what's happening in this country, is young people. It just is. We have, through March of the Polls, a number of student voter empowerment clubs. We're growing. The kids in those high schools that run those clubs put the faith back in what I've historically been a little concerned about, that we've gotten away, or there was some sort of apathy. There is an apathy in the schools. These kids are on top of it. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They're go-getters. Our country will be okay into the future. The fear is what's currently happening. The fear that we can't pull back from, once again, in my humble opinion, is truly a kleptocracy. They're moving everything, all the money's over to certain areas, and that's what it's all about. How much can we pull out before we're out? I'm hopeful in the midterm elections. I'm hopeful that if we can just pull back Congress, there'll be some semblance of stoppage of what's going on. There'll be somebody to say, whoa, put on the brakes. I am hopeful that our Supreme Court will come to its senses collectively, not individually, because some of the individuals in that Supreme Court have given me incredible pause. But young people, that's where we can find our hope and hopefully a little courage.
Yeah. For me, besides nature, because I love to be in the outdoors, honestly, and that's the way that I feel connected to one another, but also you. All of you are giving hope to us. I think I can speak to all of us. Because your presence, your dedication, your time from a Sunday afternoon to be here says that you care.
Hear, hear.
And that matters, and that is precious, and it's a wonderful gift. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts and from everything who we are, because we see your faces and we see the love and the care that you have for all your community. So thank you.
Echo all of that. I think definitely as I'm organizing, and I'm organizing with young people, and just the energy that they're using, just the different, like how the movement has evolved. When I started almost 10 years ago, we weren't using as much as social media as now. We didn't utilize TikTok and Instagram and all of that. So definitely bringing that to the forefront. Also, how the movement has evolved. We were definitely we're utilizing more the unlearning and learning of a lot of our things, of a lot of even what we learned in high school or in school in general, and now evolving to learn that there were some things that were probably missing there. And so now in community as a collective, how do we also learn new things, right? And strategize and being in community. I think for me, that's what keeps me hopeful, just being in community and understanding that this is for the long run, right? When I look at the work that has been done in previous, years, just in the history of the U.S., of how long it took just to overcome slavery, right? Or how long did it took, for the civil rights movement to evolve, or even for myself. Like I'll be honest, and I'm probably radical on this one, but I truly believe that the elimination of ICE, I truly believe ICE should be abolished. And I remember when I first started doing this work, I would say it, abolish ICE. And there was a lot of folks that at the time were like, oh, that's very radical, but I knew the harm that it was causing. I know that it was causing more harm than it was helping. And I think now you can see it, more folks, or especially younger folks, are seeing that and seeing the need of that. So for me, what keeps me hopeful in the movement is understanding that I'm only planting the seeds, right? That I'm right now just planting the seeds of reminding folks to be very conscious of the humanity of others, right? Which is very much needed at this moment. And also for a better future. And what does that look like? It looks like me providing the tools and the knowledge that I have, achieved in this 10 years. And now how do I slowly give this on to the next generation and pass on the baton to continue that work?
All right, let's give our panel a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all.